There's a reset happening right now as I speak, and it's going to create the opportunity for some people to get wealthy and other people to become poorer. Okay. And so I do want to share a little bit about what is about to happen in mid-May that can change everything. Now, I'm Kamilah Stevenson, and around here we talk wealth. And in the middle of May, something is about to happen at the Federal Reserve level that most people will not hear about until they feel it in their wallet months later down the line. So Jerome Powell's term as Federal Reserve Chair expires. And that means for the first time in years that the president gets to put someone in that seat who will actually do what he has been publicly demanding. Now, that person is Kevin Warsh, and he has a plan. Now, before I tell you what that plan is, I want to give you something that most people never get. And that is the historical context that makes this plan make complete sense once you see it, because what Warsh is about to do is not new. It has a name and it has been done before. And the last time it was done, it transferred enormous wealth from one group of people to another so quietly that most of the people it hurt never understood what happened to them. And it is called financial repression. And by the time most people figure out what's happening, it is already too late to position around it. Okay. Now, go ahead and put in the comments if you feel like this next chair will make the right decisions and lead the economy in the right direction, or do you feel like it's going to be a disaster? I just want to hear from you and see what you have to say about it. Now, I also want you to like and subscribe if you have not already. And I need you to know that nothing I say is financial advice. Everything I say is for educational purposes and entertainment only. Do your own due diligence, do your own research, and make your own decisions based off of what you find to be true and beneficial for you and your financial future. Now, I need to help you to understand what financial repression is and how it already happened to your grandparents. So let me take you back to 1946, because understanding what happened then is the only way to understand what is coming now. All right. After World War II, the United States was in a debt crisis, 271 billion in national debt against an economy of 222 billion. So more debt than the entire size of the economy. And the debt to GDP ratio was 106%. Now, here is the number I need you to hold next to that. Okay. Today, our national debt is 39 trillion. Our economy is about 30 trillion. Our debt to GDP ratio is 125%, worse than it was after World War II, the worst it has ever been in American history. So the question in 1946 was the same question being asked in Washington right now. How do you solve a debt crisis of this magnitude without collapsing the entire economy? And the answer that they chose was not to pay off debt. Okay. Nobody was going to even attempt to pay that debt off. The answer was to inflate it away quietly over decades in a way that most ordinary people never fully understood while it was happening. Here is exactly how it worked. The Federal Reserve kept interest rates artificially low. We're talking about near zero. At the same time, inflation was running 5, 6, 7, sometimes close to 10%, which means if you had money in a savings account earning 1%, while inflation was eating 7%, then you were losing 6% of your purchasing power every single year. Now, this isn't in a way that you would probably notice right away, but it was consistently. It was month after month. It was year after year. The balance in your account went up, but what that balance could actually buy went down. And so most people never connected the cause to the effect because it happened slowly enough that it felt like the normal cost of living rising rather than a deliberate policy designed to transfer wealth from savers to the government. That is financial repression in plain language. The government borrows money at interest rates lower than inflation, which means that they are effectively borrowing for free, paying back loans with dollars that are worth less than the dollars that they borrowed. The people who lent them that money, the savers, the bondholders, the pension funds, they lost real purchasing power so the government could reduce its debt burden without writing a check. And guess what? It worked. Between 1946 and 1974, the national debt actually went up in dollar terms, but the economy grew faster, so the debt to GDP ratio dropped from 106% all the way down to 25%. And the debt crisis was solved, not by paying it off again, but by the measuring stick, which is the dollar, being worth less over time. Now, here's what I want you to understand. That there are clear winners and clear losers in this period. And the difference between them has nothing to do with intelligence or connections or luck. It is one thing, and it is asset ownership. The people who lost were the savers and the ones who did what they were told, which is to work hard, save your money, put it in the bank, buy bonds, trust the traditional institutions that are managing your retirement. And what happened was their purchasing power eroded year after year because they were holding the thing being deliberately devalued, which was dollars. Now, the people who won owned assets, real estate that appreciated as the currency measuring it weakened, equities in companies whose revenues grew with inflation, commodities with fixed supply that can become more valuable as dollars became less valuable. Again, they weren't smarter. They were just on the right side of the mechanism. And I need you to understand where we are right now. Again, the debt to GDP ratio is 125%, worse than 1946. And the government is paying over $1 trillion a year just in interest on existing debt, not principal, interest. And the incoming Federal Reserve Chair has a 3-point plan that maps directly onto the financial repression playbook that was run after World War II. All right, so the mechanism is the same, the scale is larger, and most people are going to feel it before they understand it, just like last time. So now let me walk you through exactly what Kevin Warsh has said he is going to do when he takes the seat mid-May as the Fed chair. Okay, he has a 3-point plan, and I need you to understand what that 3-point plan looks like for your money, because each of his 3 points maps directly onto the financial repression playbook that we just covered. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Okay. Point number 1, cut interest rates by a full percentage point in 2026. So right now, the Fed rate is sitting at about 3.75%. Inflation is running around 3%. If Warsh cuts by a full point, rates will drop to 2.75%. Inflation stays at 3%. So rates are now below inflation. That specific combination of rates below inflation is the foundation of financial repression. It is the mechanism that makes the government's debt cheaper while at the same time making your savings worth less in real terms. So your savings account pays you 2.75%, for example, and inflation takes 3%. So you're losing purchasing power every single month while your balance goes up. The number looks fine, but the reality is not. And remember, the government is sitting on 39 trillion in short-term debt. Unlike the 1940s, when the government locked in long-term loans at low rates for decades, today, most of that debt rolls over on 1 or 2 year cycles, which means every time rates drop, the government refinances at lower costs. A full percentage point cut on 39 trillion saves the government hundreds of billions in annual interest payments, while your savings account quietly loses ground. Point 2, shrink the Fed balance sheet. So the Federal Reserve has been sitting on trillions in treasuries, loans to the government that it accumulated through years of quantitative easing. Warsh wants to sell those off. So pull that money out of the system. Now, the theory is that by reducing the number of dollars in circulation, he can cut rates without triggering runaway inflation because there's less money chasing the same goods. Now, here's what most people are not probably wondering about this. If the Fed starts selling treasuries, who buys them? Because the Fed has been one of the largest buyers of government debt for years. If they flip from buyer to seller, someone has to absorb what they're selling. Well, Warsh believes private demand from institutions, bank pension funds, and foreign governments will fill that gap. And here's the part that should make every financially literate person pay attention. If private demand is not enough to absorb what the Fed is selling, we could see now new regulations emerge that push institutions to buy government debt. So now we're going to put regulations in place to make sure it's done. So these are regulations that make it very unattractive not to lend money to the government at below inflation rates. That's exactly what happened in the 1940s. The government created rules that essentially directed institutional capital toward treasuries at losing interest rates. It was not called financial repression, it was called prudent regulation and financial stability, but the effect was the same. Savers and institutions were guided into holding the thing being devalued. Now, we've already seen the first version of this playbook in the digital asset space. The Genius Act requires stablecoins to be backed by U.S. government debt. That is artificial demand for treasuries being created through regulations in a new asset class. The packaging is just a little different, but the mechanism is identical. Now, point 3 is AI keeps inflation down. So Warsh's argument is that artificial intelligence will reduce costs and increase productivity enough that the economy can absorb rate cuts without triggering the kind of inflation surge that would normally follow. So if businesses operate more efficiently, prices stay stable, even as borrowing becomes cheaper. This is the most theoretical of the 3 points and the most uncertain. Whether AI productivity gains can actually offset the inflationary pressure of rate cuts in an environment of 39 trillion in debt and ongoing geopolitical disruption is genuinely unknown. What is known is that this is the assumption that the entire plan rests on. If AI doesn't deliver the productivity gains Warsh is counting on, the inflation side of the equation gets significantly more complicated, okay? But here's what I want you to take from all 3 points together. Whether Warsh's plan works exactly as designed or not, the direction is clear. Rates are going lower, the dollar cost of government debt is going lower, and the real return on dollar-denominated savings is going lower with them. The people who are positioned in assets that appreciate as the currency measuring them weakens are on the winning side of this, regardless of the specific execution details. The people holding cash and waiting are on the same side as the savers were who held through the 1940s and 1950s and watched their purchasing power quietly disappear while asset owners got wealthier. This is not complicated. It's not new. It has happened in this country before with living memory. And it's being set up again in plain sight on a specific day with a specific person executing a specific plan. I'm not saying it all happens at the same time, but you get what I'm saying. So mid-May is not just a fair share transition. It is the activation date for a mechanism that transfers wealth from one group to another quietly over the years. And the difference between which group you end up in has nothing to do with how hard you work or how much you earn. It has everything to do with whether you understood what was coming and positioned accordingly before it fully activated. Now, on a practical level, because I do want to be direct with this, financial repression rewards asset owners, remember, and punishes savers. That's the mechanism. That is how it worked in the 1940s, and that's how it's going to be set up to work again. It doesn't mean you get rid of all your cash. Of course, you do need cash to buy things, but I'm just giving you the principle. And here's the part that most people are really still going to miss. Owning the right assets is only half of the equation. The other half is where you hold those assets, because financial repression also means that the government needs revenue. And one of the most reliable sources of government revenue is capital gains taxes on appreciated assets. So you can be completely right about gold, completely right about silver, completely right about XRP, XLM, HBAR, or whatever you hold. And you can hold through the bear market and understand the thesis and position before the cycle turns and then you will still, if you don't have some kind of positioning where you're able to avoid those taxes, you're going to hand over a significant percentage of everything you built to the IRS because you held it in all taxable accounts, right? And so I do hold a portion of mine inside of a Roth IRA through I Trust Capital, specifically because financial repression makes the tax-free structure more valuable and not less. Now, when rates drop below inflation and asset prices rise in response, every dollar of appreciation inside of a Roth stays mine completely. And the government does not get a cut of any of that, okay? So that to me is a very wise move. Now, I do hold gold and silver and digital assets in that one account. The exact assets that have historically won during financial repression held inside of one structure that keeps the government out of the appreciation. And this is the plan. I do want to add that midsummer coming, they will be adding stocks and ETFs to that account. So you can also invest in those as well. The link is in the description, and you do get a $100 funding bonus when you fund that account. So that's more money for you to invest in assets that will appreciate, that you will not have to pay taxes on. And if you want to go deeper with this, not just with which assets and which structure, but also how to think about your total financial picture in an environment where financial repression is being deliberately activated, then that's specifically where we will have a conversation in my clarity calls. And that's what they're built for, along with my coaching community as well. So we'll talk about your income, your existing accounts, your timeline, and your plan built around the environment that you're in, because it's better to be intentional and to get your framework together than to be scrambling on the back end of all this. It will not be a nice day for most people. So the link is in the description for that as well. And let me know if you agree or disagree. Do you think they're going to pump money? Do you think inflation is going to rise? Do you think assets are going to win and the dollar is going to lose? Tell me how you are thinking about this and add to the conversation, because I do read the comments and I just want to know what you are feeling about all of this. There's a lot of people who do a lot of research as well. And so I honor also what you have to say, and I look through what you have to say. Now, everybody ain't right about what they say. Some people just don't know what's going on, okay? And if you don't know what's going on and you one of those people that are hurt because you bought at the top and then you sold at the bottom, we don't want to hear your emotions about it. We really want to hear clear thought about this. All right. So leave me a comment and let me know about that. And also let me know if you're an asset owner or if you're a saver. Drop in the comments, like the video, subscribe, share it with someone who is proud of their savings account and has never heard the words financial repression in their life, and tell them it's time to start buying some assets. But make sure you don't buy on the top and then sell at the bottom. Do the opposite of that. And as always, I want you to stay wise, stay wealthy, and I'll see you in the next video.